In the early hours of July 20th, 1944, the war was already lost for Germany. Allied forces were advancing from the west. The Red Army was crushing everything in the east. Cities were burning, supplies were gone, and defeat was inevitable. But inside Germany, one man believed the war could still end. Not with surrender, but with a single death. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg had seen the war up close. He had watched civilians die. He had watched soldiers sent into impossible battles. And he had watched Adolf Hitler ignore reality, ordering armies that no longer existed to advance on maps. Stauffenberg was no hero by birth. He had once believed in Germany's rise. But the war changed him. The suffering changed him. And by 1944, he believed that killing Hitler was the only way to save what remained of his country and Europe. Stauffenberg was missing an eye. He had lost a hand. His body was broken by the war he now wanted to end. But his position gave him something powerful: access. On July 20th, he arrived at the Wolf's Lair, Hitler's heavily guarded headquarters hidden deep in the forests of East Prussia. Inside his briefcase was a bomb. Not a large one, not dramatic, just enough to kill a man in a confined space. The meeting room was small. Windows were open because of the summer heat. Maps covered the walls. Generals stood around a heavy wooden table as Hitler entered. Stauffenberg placed the briefcase under the table. Close, too close to walk away from. He excused himself calmly. No one stopped him. Minutes later, the explosion tore through the room. Wood splintered. Maps burned. Men were thrown across the space. In Berlin, conspirators waited for confirmation. They believed Hitler was dead. Orders were prepared. Troops were mobilized. Operation Valkyrie had begun, but Hitler survived. The bomb had been moved slightly. A thick table leg absorbed much of the blast. The open windows allowed pressure to escape. 4 men died. Hitler lived. By the time the truth reached Berlin, it was already too late. Loyalist officers regained control. Phones rang. Orders were reversed. The coup collapsed within hours. That night, Stauffenberg was arrested. There was no trial, no speech, no delay. He was taken into a courtyard, shot by firing squad. His final words were not about revenge. They were about hope. The executions didn't stop there. Thousands were arrested. Hundreds were executed. Families were punished. Names were erased. Hitler survived the attempt, but not the consequences. The paranoia deepened. The war grew more desperate. And less than a year later, Berlin fell. Operation Valkyrie failed. But history remembers it not as treason, but as proof that even inside the darkest regimes, resistance exists. Because sometimes history doesn't change the world. It shows us that someone tried,